Hello, welcome to another exciting episode of Pete Chris Anxiety. My guest today is an author of A Vision of Hope, the creator of the 90-day framework that helps people discover identity, clarity, direction, and builds purpose-driven lives. His mission is to help people see not that just who they are, but who they can become, transforming pain into growth. Please welcome in the one, the only Andrew Drasen. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Pete?
Man, so tell everybody a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I had a fairly normal childhood growing up. Grew up in the Midwest, Wisconsin, born and raised, and started smoking weed and drinking around 12. Discovered pills by 16. The first time I snorted an oxy, I was hooked immediately. It was instant, and that kind of started my long battle with addiction and incarceration. I was first arrested during my junior year at school. They put the cuffs on me right outside of the school, and that kind of started my battle with the legal system. So fast forward 7 felonies and 8 treatments later in 2019, the last time I was incarcerated and the last treatment that I went through, I wrote my memoir. And I knew I had about 6 to 8 months to do. I'd done a bit of time in the past and wanted to make better use of it. So I decided to write. And so I'd share bits and pieces of it with different inmates and staff along the way, and the response that I got was very encouraging, and ended up sharing a bit during a presentation in our community during the last treatment. It ended up leading the counselor to ask me to give the commencement speech, gave the commencement speech, and it just kind of planted a seed that this could help people. And it's my story, it's also, there's a lot of universal themes to it, I guess. And so then I ended up getting out, and I got together with my fiance, Caroline. We were together for 5.5 years. I started selling cars. I sold cars for about 4 years, quit, sold solar for about 2 years, stopped doing that. I ended up losing half of the book, and I ended up finding it at my dad's house, and I'd already stopped selling solar at that time. And I kind of took it as a sign, like, you're supposed to release this. And so I started Vision of Hope Media. And in July of this year, Caroline, she was also in recovery, and she kind of had a mental health crisis and ended up taking her life in July.
Jesus, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thanks. And that's the hardest thing that I'd been through in my life by far. And, there's obviously a period where I didn't get a lot done, but ultimately it ended up reinforcing my mission that I want to help people with similar struggles and reach them before they reach the cliff's edge. So the vision has grown pretty substantially from just writing that book. There's also a Reflections companion book, which initially I also wrote that during the same period of confinement, but initially I was going to incorporate it into the main book, but it was already almost like 200,000 words, which is a
Yeah.
long book. So, it became its own book. And as I was going through the editing process, I thought about all of the treatments that I've been through and how a lot of them kind of recycled a lot of the similar information that really didn't make much of a difference for me anyways.
Yeah.
I didn't really need to know how drugs affected my kidney or my brain, or, how specifically it affected me. I knew they were bad for me. That didn't keep me clean. So that kind of inspired the workbook. And now there's a 90-day curriculum that's built out of the workbook, and I'm in active talks with different treatment centers, reentry programs about piloting the curriculum. So
That's
also,
awesome.
yeah.
That's so cool, man. That's cool to see, though. I agree with you, though. I think that I don't think a lot of those processes work. I had the same feeling about these videos about suicide. It's like, well, hey, after you take your life, and you're basically listing all the reasons why. Hey, listen, go ahead and continue to do anyways, because it's not going to matter. Life's going to continue to move on without you. I feel like they're counterproductive to what people are trying to do with them, honestly. And to me, I think they're maybe even fact triggering to some people that are already in that state of mind.
I'm not even sure what you're referring to.
Those videos where, like, you ever see those videos where people are sitting there, like, and they recorded, like, listen, the day after you take your life, and they start listing, like, different things. Oh, your text message, you'll have like 18 text messages missing from your mom, and all these things they start listing little by little in the list of things. I feel like they're just not really they're not really productive to what you're trying to do. You're telling me that someone who's who's suicidal that's going to watch this video is going to think that this is encouraging. No, this is encouraging them to continue with what they're thinking at this point because you're telling them that basically life goes on without them is what the message I'm getting from that video. You
Yeah,
haven't
and
seen those before? They're kind of like they're really jarring when you see them.
I may have, like, it sounds familiar now that you've described it, but I
Yeah.
can't recall one specifically, but I understand what you mean. I mean, if someone's already in that down and hopeless state, you want to try and help instill some hope and
Hmm.
not, kind of tack on like the guilt and the shame, like because right now they're hurting, and they don't see a way out of that hurt. And so yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I thought about that when you said that, like, you don't need someone to teach you what drugs are doing to you. You're like, I already know they're bad. It's like, it's the same thing in those situations. Like, I don't need you to remind me on why it is I feel this way, or this is already how I feel. So now you're listing all the reasons. You know what I mean? It's not productive, which it in sense is the same place I was heading the same way you were going, is that it just isn't productive to what you're trying to do with that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's it's tough, because suicide, you don't know if it's clinical, if it's situational,
Yeah.
if it's environmental, if it's a combination of all of the above.
Yeah.
I mean, there's almost always going to be some hurt and some pain and some hopelessness. Those are always going to be some themes.
Yeah, yeah, and it's unfortunate you just lost somebody to that too, and it's I'm so sorry for you, man. That's rough. Really is really hard to hear that from people because it's like after that, then it's like people don't know what to say to you, and then they treat you differently because they're like, oh yeah, there goes Andrew. He lost his better half to what you know what I mean. It's like you always feel like they're constantly talking about you in secrecy.
I mean, one thing that I kind of live by is like, it's not my opinion what other people's opinion of me is.
Yeah,
It's not my business what other people's opinion of me is. I mean, I just try and share what I've been through
yeah.
and hopefully whoever needs to hear it hears it and it can either give them courage to talk about what they're going through or just hope that they can get through it also.
Right. So let's change subjects and let's talk about the book now. What was that first idea, that moment when you came to, like, damn, I'm gonna write this book. People need to see this. When did you really get that moment of like, hey, this is a great idea? When you started getting ready to publish it, obviously you were thinking about it. So what were your initial fears when you put that book out there? Because you're putting a lot of yourself out there for the world to see.
Yeah, I mean it's been called unflinchingly honest and like the honesty is it's been that's a theme that's been in like every review. And I mean those are kind of three different questions. I mean what I thought when I first decided to write it, I'd been kind of encouraged to write a book in the past
Yeah.
by counselors, social workers, things of that nature. And my mom and I had talked about co-writing a book at one point, and I knew I had 6 to 8 months to do. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And
Yeah.
what what kind of gave me encouragement, like I said, along the way, I'd share bits and pieces and just the response that I get, it was very excellent. And then I guess my fear upon releasing it was that it wouldn't be received the right way,
Yeah.
because I just my intention on writing it was for people to have a better understanding on what an addict thinks and feels and goes through, because it's only by understanding can we develop compassionate and healing systems that help rather than punish. And I feel like that's having lived it, that's something that never it wasn't a deterrent for me, going to jail or prison. Once I'd been there, it wasn't enough to keep me clean. I'll
Yeah.
put it that way. It wasn't until that I was able to see that I could have a different life for myself and, really kind of develop that internal motivation did things start to change.
Yeah, no, I get that completely, and it makes sense. So, the fact that early on you started seeing that people were responding to your story was a good thing too, because you can see that you're sharing the story with people, and it's like, oh, well, I'm getting a great response, so maybe I should continue to go. And then you continue writing this book, and then when you release it, people are saying it's raw, real, and everything else. But I think that's what people need, though. That's the approach a lot of people need, is just that punch you in the mouth kind of thing. It's like people don't want to be sugarcoated; they just want to be told when they're fucking up. They need you to tell them. And I think when it comes to addiction, it's so hard because a lot of people tell you to just watch them just completely crash. Is that your thought on that though, too? I mean, I'm sure you probably have a different view to that.
What do you mean by watch?
Okay, so what I'm saying is like they watch people. One person I interviewed early on in the show, okay, his explanation to it was is that sometimes you just got to watch them hit rock bottom, proverbially. Now, in your own opinion, do you feel like that's the truth? Because you've been there, you've been on the other side of the coin. Do you think that's what you'd want somebody to do for you?
I mean, that's tough because it has to come from within,
Mhm.
like that internal desire and hope that you can change and can have a better life.
Yeah.
That has to be something that comes from within. But having encouragement and sometimes ultimatums from loved ones, I mean, it can be, one saying that's common, in like recovery circles is bring the body and the mind will follow, because sometimes you just need to clean out first to be able to see things clearly, because when we are lost in addiction, it hijacks everything. It
Yeah.
hijacks your brain, your actions, your interactions, just everything. And, it's very hard to have a clean perception when you're still in that state. So, getting someone to detox or inpatient treatment. I mean, sometimes it may take, some tough love,
Mhm.
but to stay clean, that has to be an internal desire.
Yeah, and it's hard to sometimes when you're trying to help people. Like, like Jay and I are really good friends. I hang out with him a lot on TikTok. We hang out in these circles with people that are different, people going through these are recovering addicts or people and things. And then, like, his approach is like that, though. He's real aggressive, though, but at the same time, it's what people need. Like, he's just like, yo, just need to stop. And he does that with me, too. Like I can come to him, but I know exactly what I'm going to get from him, though. Like, I already know Jay's going to hit me with some strong, hard truth, but it's what I want, though. You know what I mean? So I know who I'm coming to for that question. If like I know I'm doing something or I'm getting carried away, he'll just say stop and that's it. And like I can imagine how he's saying it to me. He didn't even have to verbalize it. He literally just texted. I can just imagine how he's saying it. So I love the approach though, and I think it's interesting because his story was interesting too. Because when me and him met originally, I just knew there was something special about him when I was talking to him. And then I got to meet him. He came on the show and everything like that. And we discussed a little bit about his past and things like that too. And I think that that's where you guys are ahead is that you've been there, you know what it's like. So like when people come at you with that, well, Andrew, what do you know? Well, let me tell you what I know and just run down the list of things. I've been there. You don't think I
Yeah.
don't know where you've been? That's a lot of times that's what it is. People want to see how authentic you are. And I think that's when it comes to a lot of information these days. People don't ask that question of, especially with the internet, man. So much information floating around. Like nobody stops to ask, hey, what's the credibility of this person? What do they know? You know what I mean? It's different for you and Jay. You guys are different about it. We know what yours is. You already listed. Hey, listen, this is about me. Hey, guess what? And then some of the other people he hangs out with too, I'm just like, I love them too because they're just so straight and to the point. It's like, that's what you need sometimes. You just need somebody to say, hey, wake up and stop feeling sorry for your goddamn self and get some shit going here? And a lot of people don't like that aggressive approach, but I think it really works. So it shocks your system and tells you, hey, wake up. Here's a reality check for you. You want that one? You need to get some fucking help. Where else?
Yeah. And I mean, the important thing is honesty,
Hmm.
being with yourself and then having people around you who are going to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Or hold you accountable too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, however that comes, if it comes off rough or just truth,
Mhm.
we need people who are going to encourage us to be better and not pacify us to stay the same or in our destructive behaviors or whatever the case may be.
No, no, I agree 100% too. So why don't you take us through your 90-day system? Give us a little idea what it would be like. Say I'm coming into the system. How would it go for me? What's the first steps and kind of lead me through a little bit? Give me a little taste of what it is.
So, I mean, the workbook it can be worked on its own, so it's
Okay.
available wherever books are sold. But I
Awesome.
do believe in the power of group therapy, which is why I'm reaching out to treatment centers and sober living houses, things of that nature. So it goes through. Now, the curriculum itself, it doesn't talk about drugs or alcohol one time because
Okay.
I don't believe that is the. I believe that's a symptom of whatever the root is of why we're using. It's usually a combination of some kind of unresolved trauma
Hmm.
and a lack of
Yeah.
identity and purpose and vision for our lives and our futures. So it goes through a few key aspects. It goes through identity restoration, so kind of learning who we are, what we like, what we dislike, our strengths, our weaknesses, our values, our morals, just kind of rediscovering our identity.
Right.
Then it goes into cognitive restructuring. So it looks at how we think and whether it's based on reality or on our perception. Then there's visualizing the life that we want for ourselves, everything from what we want to be doing for work, what we want to be doing in our free time, what we want our relationships to look like, where do we want to live, what do we want to drive, what do we want
Yeah.
to, just all of it. Then it's creating an action plan to create that version of your life. Then at the end, it zooms out and it kind of gets people to think about their legacy and how they want to be remembered. So, hopefully by the end, a participant will have a better idea of who they are, what they want their life to look like, have a plan in place to achieve that vision, and have an idea on how they can give back to their community instead of being strictly self-serving.
Yeah, no, I think it's great though. I mean, it's really great how you go through that because I think identity is a big one too, because a lot of times we lose ourselves with that kind of thing, and then it takes over. Then and it's the same thing for me. I'm not an addict, but I had the same issue. I lost my identity a long time ago, and now I've rediscovered it through this podcast as I went through and started interviewing different people, meeting different people. I started learning new things. So it's great that you're here telling me about a lot of this stuff because I can better help, in these situations of people I run into. So I'm always willing to help people out. I love it though. And I love the fact that you make people think about what they want to be remembered as, because I don't think a lot of people really think that far ahead. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Like, you have kids, what do you want your kids to remember you like? Like me and my kids don't have the greatest relationship, but at the end of the day, I want them to let them know that I did what I could to help anybody I could at that point. I may not have been the greatest parent to them. I'm sorry, but I mean, I'm trying to do what I can now, and even with kids, so it's you have to you really have to show them that, you're changing that kind of thing too, because they're ready. They're watching for it to happen. They're looking for you to make a mistake. And with mine, we went from not speaking to speaking now. And it's just like, it's hard, man. It's hard to get through that stuff. But it's great that, you have this workbook readily available that people can take and just kind of do at their own pace kind of thing. But I love the steps though it goes through because I think that you're covering all the things you need to. I think setting goals is great too. Even if they're just kind of like me and Jay were talking to somebody the other day, and that's what I do love though, the workbook concept. I really do. I really think the idea is great that people can take it and work their way through the steps. I have an anxiety journal that works kind of similar to that, though. Like, it works you to one side to the other. Like, it takes you to where your current thought process is, and then you kind of start going through it. And as you're breaking it down, you're like, well, okay, well, what's the reality of this shit really going on? You're like, okay, well, what's the real possibility of what's going on here? And then when you get to the end, it's like, okay, well, think about what you just wrote from page one to page two. And it's like, by the time you get to it, it's like, okay, you realize that either A, it's just really silly, or B, it's just a fear that you're coming up with on your own.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you touched on quite a bit in there. So, like, you talked about like celebrating the small wins. That's actually one of the things I incorporate in there is a daily win. So at the
Yeah,
bottom of each page, you just write a daily win
I
and
love it.
just kind of that positive reinforcement and kind of keep perspective that hey, not everything that's going on in your life is going wrong. So then kind of like the structure. So like the structure of the memoir, so it tracks along with whatever the themes are and whatever you're reading. So it
Hmm.
it works with the memoir, the reflections book, and the workbooks.
Okay.
So like in the early chapters, for example, it's going to be like focus on like family life.
Yeah.
So the structure of the memoir, there are journal entries that are woven between the chapters, which were basically chronicled from when I was arrested all the
Oh, I
way
love
up
that.
to
I love
release.
that.
Um, so there's kind of a duality even with the workbook because there's two questions per chapter and two questions per journal entry. So while the chapter questions are going to kind of look backwards, the journal entries are going to those questions are going to be more geared in the now. So it's kind of processing, where you've been and how it shaped you into who you currently are. There's a little bit of a yeah, like a duality to it there.
Yeah, no, I love that though. I think that's great though. I love the journal entries because the personal ability of it comes even closer, like people could see these are your actual thoughts you were having in that moment, and things like that too. And I think that's why the book probably has such great traction because the realism is that those are your actual thoughts that are coming out. This isn't just something you've made up to put in a book. These are your actual entries and things like that as well, which I love. I absolutely love it when people put those real thoughts in there, especially journal entries, because you never know what those journal pages are going to contain. Those are your deepest, most thoughts that most people don't even know that you're thinking about every single day. And a lot of times when people journal, that's stuff they don't share with everybody. But for you to put it in that book, I could see why people are really liking it and getting really drawn to it. And then the workbook, in the sense that everything works together, it's great because now I can add this to my list of things to add to people. Like, hey, listen, I just met Andrew. He's got this great workbook you should check out and see what you know what I mean? Different things I can add to the toolkit, man. So I hats off because I love it. Every time I get to meet somebody with some new things I can add to my toolkit, it's even better because now I can reach back and ask people. Like, and if I had questions directly, obviously I'd come to you first. Andrew, hey, I got a question for you, and things like that too, which is great because I love meeting new people that are doing things like that. Because I feel like when it comes to memoirs, the deeper you get, the better. There's one I actually think of that I read. It was a breast cancer memoir, and I know a lot of people get thrown off when I say that, but it was real. Like, this woman took the pictures just straight up. You saw everything, just the whole thing torn up, all her stitches and everything. But the realism is what is really caught me. It's like the fact that you're putting this out there that millions of people can see you. Like, for what it is, and these scars look like she described them as Frankenstein scars, but they need to they were rough to look at. But I mean, that realism, I think, is what connects with people, is because it's like now you're sharing your innermost personal thoughts with people. And now you're connecting at a deeper level because now they're like, okay, well, now I understand who Andrew is, because everybody can write a book. That's great. No, you can put text in it. But when you start putting your personal thoughts, your personal feelings, your personal entries, I think it's what sets you apart from everybody else, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that's what gives it depth
Well, hell
is
yeah.
that vulnerability and just kinda putting thought to page and, like, even, like, with the journal entries, like, it was, like, something like a quarter of the participants ended up getting kicked out throughout the program, and so it was just kind of, like, pulling lessons as the events were unfolding, and I mean, it's kinda cool. You can kinda see the growth in real time, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm proud of it.
I would be. There's no way I wouldn't be. That's awesome though, because you could see your own personal growth and how it's going, and people can see that, this is a real person. This isn't just somebody chasing money. This is a guy that's been there, knows what's going on, can tell you what's been like, can speak from experience, and things like that. It's all in your favor. And then you have all these other tools in place that are just helpful. And then with the tools you have in place are just amazing. Like, cause you're covering everything that you would already think that most people wouldn't even think of. Like, the legacy thing, I still think is the greatest thing of all of it because you're making people think about the future and go, hey, listen, how do you want to be remembered? And I don't think a lot of people ask that question to people because I think that's an interesting one to ask. It's just like me when I ask people, I say, hey, how's your mental health? Like, the reason is because you don't give them that out anymore. It's like I could say, Andrew, how you doing? You could say, I'm good. But if I said, hey, how's your mental health? You have to think about now what I just asked you as a question. You can't answer I'm good right away and just kind of end the conversation because I'm going to lead up with, well, are you sure you're doing okay? Things like that, and it's always opens it to a bigger thing, and it's always great when you hear people say that and then they respond, they're like, oh, wait, hold on, wait. They want to say okay, but they can't because you didn't give them that out to say okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that legacy piece, I mean, that was just kinda something that just kinda came to me. I mean, it wasn't even anything that I'd really experienced in any of the treatments that I was in, and, like, kind of how I go into that, for example, so, like, after someone gets done with the memoir portion and the reflections portion, it ends with a capstone speech where they just put a bunch of different aspects together, and one of those aspects is there to write a eulogy to themselves from the perspective of a loved one that they'd hope to hear at their funeral,
That's
How do you
interesting
wanna be
too. I like
remembered?
that. I like that. You know what I usually used to when I talk about people being gone but not forgotten? You ever think remember the Sandlot? Remember the conversation Benny has with Babe Ruth? He's talking about heroes die, but legends live on forever. That's the kind of aspect I get when I think about, if you're asking somebody their legacy, I like to refer to that. I know it's corny to most people, but I like to reference certain movies like that because it makes sense. Think about it. Because he wasn't wrong. Heroes die, but legends live forever. Think about all the legends out there of just different people that did different things versus the heroes. The heroes are there and then they're gone, but the legends are live there forever. Think about all the legends that are out there. Like me and I guess earlier we're talking about Homer. What is it? The Odyssey? Think of the Odyssey as people that are going through mental health. All the different things that he went through and that whole book. Think of it as that's what a lot of people deal with nowadays. It's all those different journeys that are going on and things like that too. And it's the same thing with addiction. You never know, man. Like you guys go through a lot of stuff, and I don't think people realize, how hard it is to come back from that because everybody always wants to give you a hard time and things like that too. And, and one of the things I do tell people that ask me questions, I do tell them though, if you're dealing with somebody that's dealing with an addiction, if they relapse, the one thing I'm going to tell you is don't give them hell about it, man. They already know they messed up. They don't need your help to continue to shit on them. They already shitting on themselves because they know they fucked up because now they have to tell you about it. And that's the thing I don't agree with that part. It's like don't make people feel worse than they already do. They already feel bad. Like, and you could probably speak to this on your own, like when people relapse, it's like they already know they fucked up. They're already sad about, oh, I had to restart, my sobriety days and things like that too. And I always, every time somebody says that, I always trying to be encouraging to them, like, okay, it happened, man. So just move on. You're on. All right, your life starts over. You're still here, right? That's what matters. Look at the positives. Just like you smell that page in that notebook. Hey, write something positive. Listen, you're still here, right? Okay, you made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Shit, there's nothing you can do about it. Beat yourself up or get up and go do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you learn and you grow from it, it can be framed as a bad thing or a good thing. It
Yeah.
depends of what comes of it and if any growth comes of it or not.
Yeah.
If you don't learn anything and you keep repeating the same mistakes, then it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But
No.
like, one thing that I like that the NA Basic Text says is a relapse can be the jarring experience that brings about a more rigorous form of recovery. So it can help us learn and get insight and see where we failed so we don't make that same mistake again. And like the tagline that I picked for A Vision of Hope Media, it's everyone has something to recover from. And like, not talking about drugs and alcohol, it was semi-intentional, like in the workbook, basically just lets whoever is doing it kind of identify what they need to heal from and what that healing looks like, because that it's going to look different from person to person.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
it's not kind of forcing one set of beliefs or one specific way of living on them. It's letting them identify and pick their own course. So,
Well, that's what I like about the workbook, though. It's not a cookie cutter thing. It fits everybody. You aren't trying to put people in one box. You're giving more people than just people with drug addictions the option to do something with it. And I think that's great because you didn't just label yourself as one thing. You shot for everybody, which is I think is great because it's including everybody in it versus trying to exclude people.
well, and I'll tell you, like, kind of with the identity piece, I kind of went through that when I lost Caroline.
Yeah,
I had to relearn who I was, and now what is my life going to look like now that she's not in it? And
yeah,
there's a lot that kind of had to go into that. And like with grief, there's a few things that we can do with grief. We can either kind of let it scar over and let it manifest in different ways, or we can actually kind of learn and grow and heal from it, or we can try and run from it or numb from it. And running from it and numbing from it, like, that only gets you so far and usually tacks
yeah.
on to the problems.
Yeah, man, it's tough too, and it's easier. Is it easier to talk about it all the time now? I'm sure at first it wasn't, and I'm sure a lot of people that you know don't realize when it comes to grief, it's hard. You don't know what to say to most people. So were people very excited? What did people? How did people approach you? Did you get a lot of people that did the wrong things versus the right things in your own opinion?
No, I mean, like, immediately after, a lot of people reached out and it helped. It
Yeah,
helped stay connected and just kind of talk about it. And, it was a lot harder to talk about, especially when it was fresh. I mean,
yeah,
it's been a little bit of time now, but I mean, it's still not easy. I
yeah,
mean, we lived together for 5.5 years, and, I pictured spending the rest of my life with her. And I mean, Christmas was hard. A couple of days before that, on December 22nd, that was her birthday. That was a
yeah,
hard day. It still comes. It just doesn't come as frequently. It's more in like thoughts, like when something triggers a thought or a memory of her, like that's when it'll kind of hit.
yeah, man.
Like, something like that isn't something you get over. It's something that you get through, and it's gonna shape you. It's just how it shapes you. That's what's kind of up to us.
So real quick on the subject of grief, while we're on this, do you want to give some people advice? Give them some advice. Maybe say, hey, listen, this is what you can do for somebody that's grieving. Maybe something they haven't thought of. Since it's still fresh for you.
I So one thing that it was helpful, really, my neighbor ended up bringing me a bunch of food. And because, like, when you're going through grief like that, it can distract you and you can not take care
Yeah.
of yourself. I mean, that's the case for a lot of people. So otherwise, just check in, and don't for solutions. Just if you need to talk, just know that I'm here and just show genuine compassion and empathy and just be there. Don't let them isolate and grieve alone. I mean, you can't force them to
Yeah,
go out
exactly.
like that, but just make your presence known and know that you care.
Yeah, I mean, that's really great points too, though. You can't force it on people, and don't force it on people. Don't offer the solutions. I think it's another great one too, because a lot of people tend to want to offer solutions instead of just listen to what it is that you need and ask you, hey, what could it possibly it's anything? Like I had a friend recently, the last 2 weeks, she lost her son to OD, and it was the same thing. What do you say? Like I'm never a person short for words. To be honest, I run this podcast. I've done 200 plus interviews in the first season. I am very little short of words, but when it came to that message, it was rough because it's like, what do you say to them? And I literally just sat there and texted like 40 messages and I just kept deleting them. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to say this. I just told her, I said, hey, listen, I'm here if you need me. Reach out. Love you. That's it. Boom. Straight to the point. Cause I was thinking I didn't know what to say. And it's like, I know normally it's like I don't really have the first answer to most questions, but that it was just like it was just hard because you don't want to overflow her with messages, but at the same time she appreciated those messages coming in because people were so concerned about her. When I found out about it too, I reached out to her and learned the same thing. And then she had actually done an episode and I started listening to, dude, let me tell you, it was the hardest thing you're listening to ever. As you're listening to her go through that, and she's describing the whole moment the day she found him in her house and I was like, no, no, no. I had to stop halfway through that, and I haven't finished it yet. But it was getting bad because it's like she called 911 in the conversation she was having with somebody else, and said that she got a prompt number. I'm like, 911 has a prompt number? Oh, you got a prompt? I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I'm calling you for an emergency, bro. My kid, like, it's like, and the rush emotions in that moment. But for her to come out and talk about it 9 days after the fact it happened, it's just like, I don't think I could have done it, man, honestly. And the fact that you're even talking about it now, I really appreciate you even letting us talk with you about it a little bit because I know it's hard, man. Especially the holidays had to be rough. And hats off to you, man. Like you're doing great, man. I think she's looking down, smiling on you, and the fact that you're still pushing forward, I think that's what she'd want for you too.
Yeah, and I mean, all we can do is just try and hold on to the good memories,
Exactly.
and remember them in the light that made us love them. Because I feel
Exactly.
like that's what grief is. It's misplaced love. When we loved someone or something or some circumstance and then it's taken away, we don't know where to place that love anymore. And, just knowing that that vessel that we loved is no longer here, it's tough. So
Yeah.
that would be my biggest piece of advice is just stay connected and don't isolate.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, man. It's hard when it comes to those things, man. And I feel for you and for my friend Melissa too. She runs another podcast as well. But like I said, man, I don't think I would have had the balls to do what she did 9 days later to start talking about it in great detail to us. Like, no, hats off to her, man. That's a badass on her own. So, do you have any plans for anything in the future, though? Like any new books that you're planning coming up, or are we just gonna kind of ride with it right now with this one?
Yeah, so I mean, I have the 3 out right now. Right now, I'm in kind of full outreach mode, reaching out to indie bookstores and
Yeah.
library consortiums and treatment centers. So that's kind of taking up my time at the moment. But I'm also filming a virtual
Okay.
curriculum for school. It's SKOL. It's like a learning and community
Yeah. Yeah.
platform.
Oh yeah, I got a school. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I love it. That's awesome.
Yep. So I'm filming the curriculum to offer it via school. I am working on my next book. It's pretty good underway. And then I also have kind of the bones for a fictional television series that I'm working on, which honestly that has me kind of excited. I have to kind of pause myself because now isn't the time to work on that, but I'm eager for it.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, I have a school community too. Mine's the You Matter Society. Oh, yeah, You Matter Society. But I liked it too. I love school for that reason. I offer a lot of different things in there and things like that for people. So, I'm working at getting a collection of different things people are doing, like books and stuff. So I'll definitely add your workbook and your books into that grouping as well for people to check out too, because I think they're great resources as well. But that's awesome though. Do you know what the title of the next book is going to be? Or is it just
So
we kind of still working on forming it right now?
I'm thinking it's going to be a vision beyond hope.
Okay. Okay. I like that, I like that. And then the TV series, I'm kinda interested about too, so do you have a name for that one, or you just kinda like something you're throwing together? Because I'm a TV guy, I love it.
I do have a name for it. It's called the Symphony Field. It's basically about a society post money where money is no longer a thing. That's about as much as I can give you right now.
I love it though. I love it. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look out for that for sure. So, Andrew, let me ask you a question. I ask people the same question every time. And this one is it's always a fun one first. So, my first question for you is that if your mental health had a song, what would you say that song would be?
Every Little Thing Is Gonna Be All Right by Bob Marley.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Bob Marley's the first. That's the first time we've had Bob Marley on the show mentioned before. I think earlier I don't remember who he said earlier, but we've had Rage Against the Machine come up. Michael Jackson's Beat It came up, and a bunch of other things like that too. What is it? One guy told me every. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. That was the one that had me laughing the hardest. I was like, oh my god, dude, I'm done with this question. But that's and it's so interesting though because music is such a big part of everybody's life, especially now, man. And it's always soothing. We always have an attachment to that and things like that as well. So it's interesting because someone asked me that question originally, and then my answer I had two parts. Mine was the intro to Scott Pilgrim versus the World for my anxiety. It was that constant guitar strumming in the beginning song, and then my other one was when I'm really depressed and down, it's Different Kind of Pain by Cold. It was that song that the guy had wrote for the one person that lost his mom, I think it was. One of the people had lost their mom or something. He did a song for one of the fans, which was really cool because it's so like it kind of fits with where you're feeling at that moment in that state of mind. So, but
Yeah.
sorry, I'm having a little trouble over here. Anyways, so my next question for you, and the reason I started this podcast is that if you could break the stigma about mental health, now you could do addiction as well. Just anything that you see out there that you want people to stop believing. What would you say that one thing would be?
I mean, everybody hurts and it's human to display emotion. I mean, I guess that's the biggest thing. I mean, like,
Hmm.
men cry and feel bad and feel depressed and shame and have the same spectrum of emotion as females have, like maybe might be geared a little bit differently, but I'm just saying we're all living a human experience. There's no shame in asking for help whenever you need it. We all need help at different times, and there's no shame in asking for help.
No, I agree 100%. I think that's a great point. Asking for help it's hard for some people though, because what's the way the society has us thinking is that we as men, we can't talk about these things, we're not supposed to talk about them. But, with the suicide rates where they're at, it's like, well, we obviously need to start talking because the number's going up. It's not going down. I mean, 80% of us we make up suicides, and things like that too. And then I heard a thing on the radio the other day that it was that high schoolers and college students are going up too. The numbers are just continue rising, but yet again, we don't want to deal with this problem, of course, and the most recent one is the Dallas Cowboys player that ended up taking his life, unfortunately, and it's like my first thought was when I heard about it was that, okay, so what were we doing for this young man if he was struggling? Because his girlfriend was on record quoted saying that he had a lot of mental health issues. Okay, so he had issues. What were you doing to better help him? I mean, like, he's playing for America's team, so he has access to tons of things. Did you try to get him some help? Because I know that also on top of that, he was dealing with the loss of his mom. And as you're dealing grief right now, that's hard. It's not one of those things that end in a year later, he'll be fine. It's one of those things that lasts for them forever, depending how close him and his mom were. And maybe that's just me because I just started asking a lot of those questions. I was like, so what are we doing about this? And, the thing is that we've heard nothing after that point. You haven't heard anything about anybody doing anything. It's like, okay, cool. Well, now it's your time to respond, NFL. What are you all doing about this? Are you guys trying? You need to do something for these guys that are being put on these high pedestals, but, their mental states are so bad that these unfortunate acts are happening. Think about like the Junior Seau thing where he went nuts because he had all those concussions and things like that. That is that what we need to happen again for something to happen? It shouldn't be. At this point, we should be worried about these guys' health as well. Not only their health, but their mental health as well. But so I've challenged the Dallas Cowboys. By the way, I went on to on there and started tagging them and stuff and challenge them like, hey, listen, what are you guys doing about this now? What is your forward thinking now that this young man is gone at 24? What's our next step here to make sure these guys are better taken care of?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, our overall health, it's all tied together,
Mm-hmm.
physical health, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual health, it's all tied. So, I mean, for example, your mental health is off, you have anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
it causes increased blood pressure, and just this whole range of neurological effects. And if we neglect one area, it's going to throw everything off kilter. So I think we need to normalize talking about mental health
We
and
do.
shame, depression, and anxiety, and these emotions that we feel we can't talk about.
Yeah, and and a lot of addiction leads from that too, is people trying to medicate for these things. They're trying to make the voices go away and things like that. And all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, and that's how a lot of addiction starts. And I think a lot of people seem to tend to forget that too. It's just it's something causing them to wanna do these things. It's not just because they wanna do it. Sometimes they're trying to get away from something. That's the same thing with alcohol use and all that other kind of stuff and things like that as well, man. So, but Andrew, we're gonna get ready to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety, man. First, I wanted to thank you for being here, but before we start signing off, can you tell everybody where to find you? Obviously, where's the book ready and available everywhere, I would assume?
yeah. Books available wherever books are sold. Also, additional information can be found on the website, avisionofhopebook.com. You can email me at andrew@avisionofhopebook.com. Socials everywhere. Pretty easy to find.
He's also got the school too. He forgot to plug the school. He's got the school community as
Well, it's
well.
under development. It's under development.
Well, when Andrew, when you get that going, let me know, man. I'd love to put it in the description of the video for everybody to go check it out and things like that too, man. Because I'm always here to support it, other people what they're doing, man, for sure, definitely. It's so for sure. So to keep us posted though on the other book and the TV show, I'll keep you posted as soon as he lets me know about these things and let y'all know because I want to make sure we all go out there and support what he's doing, man. But I appreciate you coming and hanging out with me today, man. I really do. It was great having you. You're more than welcome to come back when that next book comes out. We can discuss that more and everything else like that as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pete. It's been a pleasure.
Definitely, guys. And with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. You know where to find me on Pete vs. Anxiety on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety saying off saying, hey, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health?
So bad, you're breaking my neck. It's a sign of respect, it's a knife for death. But never dive the price of a check. I got my integrity and my word. I'd rather die.